All right, worshipful brother Andrew, if you would like to go ahead and take the helm here. I see you are loaded up with your presentation this evening. So you have the helm.
Thank you guys for taking a beautiful, beautiful night here on the eve of Memorial Day weekend to drop by. I appreciate that very much. I know we're at that point where there's a lot of things out there that are warm and beautiful, and it's like, I don't know. So it's appreciated very much. I originally put this presentation together at the request of the master of Masaba Lodge. It was fun researching, looking around. I want you to approach this not as anything definitive, but as food for your thoughts, food for the things that you think about, especially when somebody says to you, when they find out, you say something like, yeah, our Masonic Lodge did this or that. And they look at you, you're a Mason? Yeah, I am. Well, what is that all about? And we all have our elevator speech. And this is some things, I just put it out there as things for you to consider among the very broad definition of what makes us Freemasons. And the first thing, of course, what makes us a Mason? Well, we all know our oaths and obligations. That's part of, as it were, the catechism that we learn early on. But more than that, what I'd like to look at is what defines us as Masons. Not just what makes us, but what becomes the internal definition of us as Masons. One of the things can be argued is our strength in brotherhood. A long time ago, when I was very early beginning my Masonic journey, I remember very vividly that quote above. One of the great strengths of Masonry, the speaker said, was we are bound together by common oaths and obligations. As was said, when I meet a brother Mason, I already know exactly who he is, what he has bound himself to, what he has obligated himself to do. So you meet a brother anywhere, you already know who he is. In that brotherhood comes, of course, the camaraderie born of common experience, common philosophy, the commonality that comes from being together. Those things where we can rejoice with a brother, marriage of a child, job promotion, any number of different things. When their life becomes challenging, we're there to console him. Sometimes it's the harder things that bond us and makes our brotherhood stronger. So those things worth considering on what makes us that. The other question would be, or one of the many questions, does personal growth help define us? I think we've all experienced as we go through the lodge line. We learn things not only about how to run a lodge, the nuts and bolts. For a lot of folks, this is the one chance in their life or the one opportunity in their life to take gradually growing responsibilities and leadership positions. And that's an area of personal growth. You learn how to plan. That trestle board does not plan itself. When you're given a task by your master to perform it, for people such as myself, the opportunity for lifelong education and learning, always finding new stuff. You can read the works of others, and there's some just fantastic things out there. And then see where your own curiosity goes. A couple of guys here and I, before this, we were talking about, squirrel moments in Masonic research. As you're looking at one thing, you suddenly see a little reference to something else and you go, squirrel, and you go after that. And your curiosity leads you down various winding roads, always seem to lead to the same place with learning more about the craft or aspects of the craft or Masonic philosophy or the history or, you name it. One of the other things that may define us is the fact that we are pledged to charity. And charity comes in a whole different slew of opportunities. There's the community involvement. My home lodge, Ionic, for many years has adopted a local charity. Every master adopts a local charity for his year. And we direct a lot of our fundraising for supporting that local charity. Sometimes there's events for a cause, just a single one-off cause. That's always a lot of fun, and I know a lot of your lodges have done that. Raising, sometimes the spaghetti fundraiser for somebody who might have a family member or cousin in financial need for medical treatment. There's a good example. The last one on there came out of, I want to say it's Ohio, where several lodges in a school district got together. They raised money from fall until spring, and at the end of the year, they went to the superintendent of the school district and said, how many outstanding lunch bills are there for kids? How many kids' parents can't pay their lunch bill? And they paid it all off. Just boom. Why? Because they're Masons. It's what they do. That's one I thought it just really struck me personally as an amazingly wonderful community charitable act. Charitable acts can be what we do inside our lodge with our brothers, part of that strengthened brotherhood. I've often heard it said, supporting somebody financially is easy. You just reach into your wallet, pull out 5, 10, 20 bucks, put it in the hat. Mentoring, proficiency, and this is something I've talked to the mentoring committee a little bit about. I think mentoring and Masonic education should be joined at the hip because one leads to the other and each one supports the other. That is a wonderfully charitable act for you to volunteer to be a proficiency or degree work and to help out with that. There's the other part, and it's real hard to do. It's hard to do in our culture. It's hard to do, especially in Minnesota, where extroverts are defined as the people who look down at your shoes and not their own. But for us to be open enough to either seek or be open to support when we are in spiritual need. So charity, charitable acts. Some of the other things that we arguably, I think very strongly, do believe in. Kindness, our honesty in our dealings, if only to ourselves because we know what we've pledged ourselves to do. Not because, well, everybody should be honest in business. It's, well, of course I'm honest in business. I'm a Mason. Courtesy. I have found my Masonic education, personal growth. I try and strive on social media to be the voice of reason and calm, a personal crusade of mine. Everybody needs a windmill to tilt at, that's mine. Fairness, dependability, compassion and support, which goes back to in a form of charity. And of course, brotherly love and respect, the respect from coming from being in a common bond. And of course, our devotion in any form to a supreme being. Something else, though, that can arguably, and sort of going backwards, let's go forwards. Yes. That self-perfection, that commitment we make to all those things. And that comes from our obligations, from our oaths, from our conduct. And it kind of sums up, commitment sums up a lot of the things I've just been speaking of. The charitable act of help, lending a helping hand and accepting a helping hand. Lending a hand through charity without the community. They all, you can see, kind of one works off the other in a grand circle. And in that commitment, the things you commit yourself to, I would argue, are some of the things that help define us as Mason. As a Mason, I'm committed to brotherly love, relief, and truth. What are those? Well, here's some examples. Charity outside the lodge, the bond of brotherhood, being supportive, honesty, fairness, acting on the level, meeting on the level, acting on the plumb. All of those things help define us and help us to define our world around us. And so those are some of the thoughts that you can take with you and discuss. It's easy to discuss around a cup of coffee after lunch. Well, how do you define yourself when somebody asks you, well, what makes you a Mason? Why? What is that about it? So it's a brief discussion, but I consider it kind of a springboard. And I'd love to hear from some of you guys. If somebody were to say to you, oh, so you're a Mason. Well, why are you a Mason? What makes you such? I mean, do you have an elevator speech? Do you have something you tell somebody when you think about, well, what makes me a Mason? And I'd love to hear from what you guys have to say.
Well, thank you for that, Worshipful Brother Andy. Let's go ahead and open it up to a Q&A section. And then, once we kind of seem to have got through the end of that, if you brothers don't mind, I'll open up the poll section, and then we'll stay on for maybe 15 minutes after, about 7:45 or so, if anyone wants to hang out and chat a little longer. So I'll go ahead and mute myself, and let's have some great discussion. Thank you for that presentation.
Is that PowerPoint or whatever available to us on any site?
It's one I just made up this year, and I can certainly find a way to get it uploaded. Absolutely, Bruce.
That would be great.
Yeah, I took some stuff from various other Grand Lodges around the country and some of their presentations. So it's cheerfully cobbled together with a lot of other people's hard work. And I'll be happy to share
I
that.
like it because as what it is a presentation of, it is excellent. It covers things, but also because I never know what degree we're going to open on at Tussler Summit. If a EA comes in, we open on the EA degree. If we've got only FCs and masters, we open on the second degree. So presenting something that is attuned to a higher degree sometimes gets washed out. I may try to have 2 or 3 things, which makes my memory work not so good on trying to present something for the first time. But this is great because you can present it at any and every level. You could even have outside people.
This is a good one to do if you're having an open house or just an open discussion of Freemasonry. This, I think, is one that's very useful to perhaps get people's attention.
Exactly. Thank you. We'll be looking forward to having that and presenting it and letting our brothers know that it's available.
Oh, yeah.
Because we often have a lot of walk-ins. A lot of our newest members in the past 2 or 3 years drove into our parking lot, saw our lights on a Tuesday night for not so much for the stated, but for the Tussler Tuesdays, the other Tuesdays, the other 3 or 4 that are not a stated meeting, and we could greet him, meet him, and he got to see the guys in a relaxed situation. We weren't all there in suit and tie or tuxedo, and it's worked out well. It really, they had an interest, but I think it really helped them. And if you have this on the side, if somebody wanted to use it, we can project it in the unused, as far as a tiled lodge, in our lodge room where we've got our TVs. So you can just pop my computer in and we can run it through.
Absolutely, Bruce. I will make an effort to get that up.
Thank you.
And I can post a link with whatever the next thing I put out is.
Wonderful.
Don, Frank, thoughts?
So I'll take a stab at your question. When I first got into Masonry, I was looking to an organization similar to what I found in a college fraternity, where I was able to be amongst just really great guys and have those candid conversations. I was introduced to Masonry when I was about 18 or so, is when my father sat me down. I remember the conversation very clearly. It was down in Florida. We were on vacation. He said, "Damn it, I'm so excited to show you what this is, this light that you'll find. But you have to discover it your own. You have to discover it on your own." Once I left college, I kind of had a hard time connecting with friends because people from college are all over the place. I didn't have a location that I could go and just be and not be on, but I could just be myself. I was looking for that thing that I found in college fraternity life, but not as much interesting nights, I guess I would say. So I found the right lodge for me, and what really defines my Masonic journey has been just the true essence of being a person who I want to be around. I find myself in a lot of brothers that I associate with, and it's such a confirming emotion of being able to have real, not debates, but real conversations and having just absolutely wonderfully expression, what's the right word, compassionate speeches. I mean, in Masonry, we learn these fantastical words that we just use in our everyday ciphers, but when we can pull that into everyday speech and just into our lexicon, we can have even more beautiful conversations. And I think that's what defines my Masonic journey, is just having more in-depth conversations with brothers that I know actually care, not just about me, but me and mine, my family, my being, my house, my everything. And that's what I think defines my Masonry.
That's a good definition.
Well, I'll chime in here a little bit, worship brother, and say that to me, when I talk about it, and when I do presentations and things like that, I basically say Masonry is three things. It's a place for friendship and fellowship. So if you are in need of, well, at the moment it's a little bit stressed, but if you're in need of human contact, if you're in need of being with others who are of a similar frame of mind, that the lodge is the place to be. The second part of that is that it's a structured learning system. We improve on a good man by going through lectures and allowing them to see the beauty of the various types of lectures and be a participant in that. Obviously they are as when they go through the degrees, but it's a structured learning system. And the third part of it is that it's a leadership training platform. It can be a leadership training platform. So anybody can rise to the position of worshipful master. The lodge will give opportunities to people that want to take a chance and be a leader. If they want to run a pancake breakfast, that's the place to do that. So I tend to look at it as those three things, and that's what we do in the in Masonry. You can always expand on that, and you go with the shrine and the rites and all that other stuff, but that's it at the basics. And when we add, and one of the things to add to what you talked about with the charity is, Minnesota is a little bit unusual than most of the jurisdictions around the country. We have we are the largest donator to the University of Minnesota health system. Obviously with the cancer center, the children's hospital, and things like that. So we have a lot of initiatives where we put our money where our mouth is. So it extends from the local lodge to state and international well-being of individuals. And then lastly, one of the things I'd want to point out is there is the beafreemason.org website, and it's a joint effort between the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, the Southern Masonic Scottish Rite jurisdiction, and the Shrine. In the probably the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite did most of the videos, and their videos are really top shelf. So
Excellent. I really recommend those.
yeah. So that's a place to go where, if you got somebody who's even barely interested, they're going to get high production value out of those videos and learn some things.
Absolutely. I'd like to express on that too, Andrew. One of the things I liked about the presentation is how you touched on those tenets that, that we're so inculcated with, right? But that Ashlar work is one that I still think stands out the most. And even, we had made reference to that squirrel, I think that enlightenment, that ability, one of the things that I've really taken to heart is, I was a person that was always really hard on myself, felt that I needed to. And that drive would sometimes leave me setting myself up for my own failures. That from that, I learned to start taking inventory, and through exchanges with brothers and some like-minded conversations, the ability to really identify what was part of me. I think one of the things that I remember as a kid growing up is you need to find out what you're weak at, because you can't be weak, you gotta be strong, right? And you find out as you grow up, well, man, this weakness I've had, and I've spent 20 some years trying to be strong at, it doesn't seem to improve. And then I was studying Ohio Freemasonry has a great resource for you to go in, the University of Freemasonry, and there's some great lessons they have. And I come across one that talked about taking inventory before you go to the East. What are your strengths? Reach out to your peers. What are your strengths? What are their perception of your weaknesses? Accept your weaknesses and ask your brothers to support that. That lesson really rung home with me, because I found myself through that and some other development through more lessons in Masonry, just really being able to now share that and help other brothers, because you can see how that fatigue is wearing on them. And to me, that just brings that strength of brotherhood, and just, I don't know a big enough microphone for it, Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. That's a great point. And I think that's something that we all should consider. I like that part. Especially the part of recognizing what you need help on, and empowering your brothers to help you when you move to the East, and anytime. I got something here from Larry Lyman. And I think it goes to a little bit of the point of the things that we need or always consider, especially in Lodge. He says, some brothers seem to feel that when they have an idea, it's all right to form a team on their own without sharing in the Lodge until they have developed the concept to the point of implementation, at which time they come to Lodge for approval, funding, and then they run it. And it kind of cuts out the rest of the brethren. While the project might be worthy, I am concerned that the way they go about things is not fraternal. Sure wish I could find a way to convince them to begin in Lodge, including all brothers, and move forward together. And I think that brings up a lot of the discussion of how we relate with each other as brothers. But I think it also gives a springboard of, we all know humans tend to be resistant to change. And when a brother has an idea, is there a culture in that lodge of, well, we're not going to do it. Well, we've never done it that way. Well, you look back in the minutes from 1905 and they had the same idea and we didn't do it then. Maybe there was a good reason. Maybe it was resistance to change. So I think that sometimes perhaps goes to some of the things that we're discussing here tonight on, do we welcome at least the idea? Well, brother, thanks for sharing that. And why don't you keep running with it? One of the things I learned in my previous occupation was a lot of times harebrained ideas, when you empower the people to keep working on it, they either figure out it was a harebrained idea or they come up with something really creative that works really well, that we would have initially been resistant to, but they knew it was okay to keep working at it. Some people don't do that. They work, as Worshipful Brother Larry points out, because they're afraid to bring it to lodge until such time as they can show conclusively it's going to work, to avoid the, we're not going to do that because that's change. So it's something I think worth thinking about.
Andy, if I could interject.
Yeah, Bruce.
This is Larry.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi, Larry. I don't see you here tonight. That's why you're not showing up on my screen. That's my fault. Oh, there you are.
I should be there.
Anyway,
Anyways.
well, I have the way my screens work right now. I'm screen sharing, so I don't get everybody who's on.
Okay. Well,
I see you, brother.
The particular case in point here, there was no concern in that regard, I don't believe, because I tend to be a master that says there are no bad ideas. So
I love that.
I love to hear them. But we have a couple of our young guys that I think don't quite understand the concept of fraternity yet. And they are concerned, I think, and I can only speculate because it's difficult to talk with them without meeting resistance. But the sense I get is, hey, nobody's going to steal my idea. This is my idea, and I'm going to run with it.
Yeah.
That it works in other groups I've been a part of, but Masonry is about, more than anything in my world, the fraternity, the fraternal nature of us supporting each other, working together. And I'm not sure how to break through that sense of, I'm going to hang on to this. I don't want to share it until it's beyond sharing. And that concerns me because while the folks that I'm thinking of are really, really energetic, really, really good people, the idea of coming forward at the beginning of a concept and fleshing that concept out together with other brothers seems to be anathema to their nature, or at least to their upbringing. I don't know why. I was raised in a different environment. I come out of the U.S. military and air traffic control, where everything's collaborative.
Well, you guys certainly enjoy telling me where to go.
Well, I do what I can, that's one of the joys of it. And worse yet, I was in a strategic air command for 4 years, where peace is our profession, but war is our hobby. So, I had some fun along the way. But I would like to somehow gently convince these guys the advantage that comes in fraternal relationships and not being afraid to share with all the brothers, not just the select couple who you feel are your friends. Because what it tells me is you don't understand everybody in the room is your friend by virtue of the fact they all have risen to the sublime degree of Master Mason.
I think I can.
We meet on the level. We part upon the square, and we act on the plumb. I feel as though those three tenets are somehow compromised sometimes. And Andy, I don't know if I'm expressing myself very well.
Oh, you're doing great.
But hopefully you get the idea. And I'll mute again here.
I think I can speak on some of the concerns that have come up because these things have come up to me before. And I have seen this happen in lodge before, where somebody comes up with an idea, and somebody with a less than positive attitude shoots it down. And that makes people very gun shy to bring it up into a large group until they have more of it flushed out, more of a thought process done. So, I mean, part of that could be that we need to encourage more of a brainstorming type mentality in the lodge and not have the negative comments just come shooting out, which a lot of times will shut people up, and they're like, well, I kind of think I have an idea, but I'm afraid to bring anything up because I don't want anybody to, come down on me negatively for speaking something up.
I think you got a good point. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'll just weigh in real quick, Larry, because I've seen what a partial reference to that I think is called a coup. We've seen some of that happen within the lodge, and leadership and the officers, I think, really need to make sure there's an understanding to watch for that. Utilize the working tools of the third degree, that independent counsel, approach those brothers. But sometimes the message shouldn't come from the master. It needs to come from other brothers in the lodge too, of how, approach them and say, we should really stick to a hierarchy because we are Masons. Sometimes it's just that little re-encouragement, but we've actually had our lodge education officer kind of help us with a couple of a collaboration and teamwork, and the importance of not having a coup kind of thing take place.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad way to put it. And I hadn't thought about asking the LEO to step in, but that's not a bad idea at all. Matter of fact, that's a pretty good idea. So I will proceed in that regard. I'm not so much worried for myself because, as you know, I can be kind of strong if I need to be. But I'm looking down the road. We're going to have a younger guy, tradition prevailing, stepping into the East, and someone who I don't want to see get run over simply because people think they can. That's not an appropriate way to be a Mason. So,
We don't want
but
to.
I thank you very much, and Andy, I really appreciate your input as well. And now, as worshipful brother Shannon knows, I'm going to need to take my leave because I have some other duties that I have to take care of here with the wife.
I'm actually looking at the same thing myself. So Larry, you have a great evening. And I think you've given us all a great deal of food for thought that ties in really well with the presentation.
Well, I love your work, and keep up the good work. Everybody have a good holiday.
You too. Here's the absent friends.